Okay, here we go. Checkpoint 1, solving equations. Now I passed out a sheet like this, that green sheet earlier in the year on how to solve equations. And this is pretty much the same thing. I just revised it to fit this video. So you can either use that and study that. It's got an example with it also, or maybe print out this page. It's probably handy. All right, now the first question, I'm going to do 5 questions here. The first question is 4x minus 6 equals negative 10. When I do this one, my goal here is to get x by itself. So I need to get rid of the 4, I need to get rid of the negative 6 or the minus 6. Because this is undoing, we're doing the opposite of the order of operations. I'm going to do the addition or subtraction first, and then the addition and multiplication, or the multiplication and division last, which is the opposite of the order of operations. So my first step here is to get the 6 to the other side. So I'm going to add 6 here. So I get 4x equals negative 4. And then our last step typically is to divide by the number in front of x. So we can get a 1 in front of there. Since I do it to the left side, I must do the same thing to the right side to keep a balance. So 4 divided by 4 is 1, so I have 1x, or just x, equals, and then simplify this to negative 1. Please circle your answer. Now when I go back to this page, it says, step 1, if possible, simplify each side of the equal sign, distribute and all that. Well, this one isn't that difficult. It's already simplified. There's no x's to combine or numbers to combine. When we get to problems like these here, maybe this one even, I'll have to mess with these x's and somehow group these x's together and the numbers together over here, because there's more than just 2 things on either side of the equal sign. Let's go on to number 2. I need to distribute this one because it has a set of parentheses. So 3 times x and 3 times 4 is 12. Keep the minus sign. Now, for more difficult problems later, you might want to go plus negative 4 there. So you realize it's 3x plus 3 times negative 4 is negative 12. So that would give you something that looks like that. Either way, it's pretty much the same thing. Now at this point, the left side is simplified. You cannot group those together. The right side is simplified. The problem is we have x's on either side of the equal sign, and we have numbers on either side. So let's put the variables on one side and the numbers on the other. And it doesn't really matter which way you do it. I'll subtract 7x here from both sides. I get negative 4x on the left. I'm just going to write minus 12 equals now just 2, because that's gone. Now because I moved the x's to the left side, I need to move the numbers to the right side. So if I'm going to go plus 12 because it's subtracting 12. So to undo that, I'm going to add 12 to both sides. Both sides meaning both sides of the equal sign, once to the left, once to the right. So I have rewriting negative 4x equals 14. And then the final step again, whatever's in front of the x, typically you're going to divide by. So I'm going to divide by the negative 4, not positive 4, but negative, because I want a positive 1x. So I have just a regular x. And then over here, because I wrote it with the horizontal bar, it just looks like a fraction. That's my answer, 14/4. I just have to reduce it. So on 14, if I divide both of them by 2, I get 7/2. And the negative sign I typically will just put on top. And that's the form that I prefer. If you want to make it 3.5, that's okay. I prefer not the decimal version though. Don't take your calculator and divide 14 divided by 4. I want to give you some extra practice with the fractions. All right, moving on. Next problem, we have a couple different choices here. I will just follow our rule and probably to be safe, go plus the opposite of x here. So you realize that the 12 is being added. So I can go minus 12 to both sides. Now I'm picking that because it's next to the x. I don't want to go plus 2 because then I have nothing over here and then I have stuff next to the x still. So I have the opposite of x on the right side and negative 14 on the left side. At this point, you could just use some common sense and say, well, if the opposite of x is negative 14, x itself must be positive 14. You can do that. Or, let me move this down. Or you could just divide by the number in front of x. Now you don't see it, but there's a negative 1 there. That would cancel off the negative sign. And negative 14 divided by negative 1 gives you the positive 14. Either way, that works for you. Now to start the problem, I could have, I don't know if this is easier, I think it's easier, take this x and move it to the left side right away. So add x, and the reason I do that is because then x is just a regular x. Not necessarily a positive x, but it's just a regular x without the negative sign in front of it. And I'm this -2, I can go plus -2 or just -2, it's the same thing. And then this looks a little bit easier than the original problem. At this point, I would go +2, I'd add 2 to both sides. So get x equals the same 14 I had before. All right, moving on to number 4. We have parentheses over here we have to get rid of. The middle of the equation is right there where the equal sign is. The right side's already simplified. The left side's a mess. So let's take care of this mess. Now when you distribute this -5, you have to be careful. Some people are going to put plus or like -10 probably here. It's confusing with all these negative signs. So to be safe, you might want to go plus -2 to begin with, and then do this distributing. So we have -5 times -2 is actually a +10. I'll recopy the rest. Now on the left side, I still have some x's I need to combine. -5x plus 2x is -3x. Just keep recopying. Trying to keep the equal signs lined up the best I can. And now I'm at the point where I have x's, a single x on the left, a single x on the right, single number on the other side. So this is where I take and I can add them to either side. I'll take my -9x over here. I'm thinking that as a -9, that -9x. And I'm going to go plus 9x to both sides. So I have 6x plus 10 equals -5. Well, because I moved the x's to the left side, I need to get rid of the 10. If I would have moved the 3x to the right side, I would have gotten rid of the 5 and moved that to the left. So here I'm just going to go -10, or plus -10, either way. 6x equals -15. Divide by 6. And then reduce this again. So I'm not going to think how many times is 6 going to 15. I'm just going to reduce. They're both divisible by 3. So 15 divided by 3 is 5. 6 divided by 3 is 2. And I have a negative sign. I'm going to keep that on top. My answer is -5/2. And the last one. A lot of negative signs here. You might want to be safe and go plus negative here, plus negative here, plus negative here. That's always a safe thing to do. So then when you distribute, you won't forget that it's negative times a negative to get a +8 here. Now just for practice and for those who are pretty good at this, I'm just going to leave it as it is and just think, okay, -4x plus 8. Just be careful. Think of this as a -4 and a -2 plus the 3x. We have a 6x and we have a 2, so -2 or plus -2 either way, and then -4 just to bring that down from up above. Now x is on the left side. Here's the middle, right? There's the middle equal of the equal sign. X is on the left side I can combine, and numbers on the right side I can combine. So on the left side I have -1x, or just the opposite of x. Bring down the 8, keep the equal signs lined up, and I have a 6x, and I'm thinking this as -2 minus 4, or -2 plus -4. Either way it's -6 or plus -6. So I'll change this to plus negative. It's probably safer like that. Now we're down to our just regular x's on either side and numbers on either side. I'll take this x and I'll add x just so we get some practice moving it to the right side. And it keeps our x's positive. So we have 7x plus -6 equals 8. Because I have a -6 here, I'm going to actually add 6 to make that 0. Because I added 6, I need to do the same thing on the left side. So 7x is 14. Divide both sides by the number in front of the x. Don't divide by 14 because it's on the left side. Divide by the 7 because you want to get the coefficient of x to be 1, so it's by itself. So we have 1x because I divided by 7 there, I divide by 7 there. Final answer, x is 2. Okay, now it's not a bad idea, especially if you have time, to check your answers. So I'm going to take a minute here and just check this one problem. We have x equals 2 as our solution. I'll just write this up in the corner. And to check your answer, all you have to do is plug it in wherever you see an x. That's where you're going to put in your 2. Okay, and then just recopy everything. So negative 4 times 2 minus 2, 3 times 2. You put a dot there if you want. Don't put an X though for times. Just put a dot or parentheses. 2, and I'm going to put a bracket here in place of this parentheses, these parentheses, because I have a 3 times 2 here. And you might put parentheses there. Minus 1. Doesn't matter if you put bracket or parentheses. Simplify this part of it in parentheses is 0. So I have negative 4 times 0. Plus 3 times 2 is 6. 2 times 6 minus 1 and minus 4. Only thing here I can see is make that a 5. So I have 0 here plus 6. 2 times 5 minus 4. 6 equals 10 minus 4. And 6 equals 6. When you check these out, when you check your problems, always solve vertically. Keep your equal signs lined up. And then go all the way to the end where it says a number equals a number. Don't stop like at the second last step here and say, oh yeah, 10 minus 4 is 6. Just keep going one more step. 6 equals 6. Yes, that's checked. So because 6 equals 6 is a balance, it's balanced, then you know my original answer, x equals 2, is correct. So the solution to the problems is still x equals 2. All right, good luck.